It is Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. That is Justin Penik. I am Chris Rose. Bobby Skinner is traveling back from his global excursion, right? And he'll be back with us at the end of this week, is what I keep being told.
Yep, he'll be back.
Okay. Have you heard from him?
Yeah, he's in a Spaniard now. He's a Spaniard.
Isn't he getting married over there?
No, he's not getting married over there. His fiance's family is from Spain, but he'll be getting married in Florida, and I will be there next year.
Oh, that's lovely. I thought maybe it would be at the 50-yard line in East Rutherford, but
no.
No? Okay. Well,
No.
wouldn't that be great if you could get like the Super Bowl 42 champion offensive line to be all the ushers at the wedding and stuff?
You know what? That's his dream. That you got to tell him that, and maybe he can get one of the guys there, and that would be his dream. But I mean, if you have it at MetLife Stadium, whoever's carrying in the rings is going to tear their ACL at the 45. I mean, that's the only unfortunate thing.
Very good. Very good. Hey, producer Mikey, shout out as well. Thanks for putting this show together. All right, so a lot of interesting stuff has happened since we last spoke, starting first and foremost with Trevor Lawrence, who does finally get that extension, 5 for $275, and that includes 142 mil guaranteed, fully guaranteed. I mean, he's still going to make a ton of money. This is incredible. So basically, he joins Joe Burrow, highest AAV at 55 million. I guess it's a two-part question here. What do you need to see out of Lawrence moving forward, and how confident are you that he will take the Jacksonville Jaguars where Joe Burrow has taken the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, I'll attack the first part of that first. Two of the main things that I need to see out of Lawrence moving forward: he needs to get better under pressure, and in the second half and the fourth quarter, he needs to get better. Kind of similar to how we were talking about with Tua, Chris. It's not as bad as Tua, but certainly Trevor Lawrence, at least last year, there was a conversation to be had about the second half and in the fourth quarter. First half splits were a lot better than the second half splits. And then even going back to last year, Bobby Skinner has talked about his ability under pressure, not just metaphorical pressure of it being the fourth quarter, but actually under pressure when the pressure is there, that Trevor Lawrence does need to be better. But really, outside of that, Chris, I feel like the criticism of Trevor Lawrence has gotten way, way too hot. And I've seen nothing from Trevor Lawrence himself that tells me that this guy can't take an NFL team where they need to go. So even going towards the second part of your question, can he take the Jags where Joe Burrow has led Cincinnati? I think he can. The difference is between those two teams is that I think Cincinnati is much better set up roster-wise to get to where they need to be, and that is a Super Bowl team. And the Jaguars, while I like their defense, and they even have a new defense coordinator this year, the former defense coordinator of the Falcons, and even their defense last year wasn't bad. At certain points, they were carrying them through that winning stretch in October and November before they lost every game in December. But I don't trust the roster that they're building on the offensive side of the ball, and there's a lot of pressure on Brian Thomas. But again, just with Trevor Lawrence, I think the hate has gotten way too hot, way too quick, and he doesn't fully deserve it right now. And I think this maybe happens all the time, Chris. Somebody gets paid a lot of money, and money that, it's not even about what these guys deserve. It's just your contract is up in the NFL, and even if you're a middling guy, you're going to reset the market. That's just what happens with these quarterbacks. So Trevor Lawrence does deserve this new contract. The heat is way too hot on him right now, at least from the media. I think he can take the Jaguars to a promising place.
So this is the start of his fourth year, but I really consider it the start of his third year. I don't know what the hell that was his first season.
Urban Meyer.
I mean, that was despicable.
And the fact that he's come out of that looking not great. Like let's not sit here and say Trevor Lawrence looks great. But I think he is one of the victims. We usually say this is the shoes on the other foot. We usually say a guy that has pre-draft conceptions on him, they're usually bad. And then in the NFL, it's like, oh, well, he is actually performing somewhat better than the pre-draft, the conceptions that he has on him. Trevor Lawrence has gotten the treatment of, well, he was supposed to be Andrew Luck. He was supposed to be generational. And the fact that he isn't generational is hurting him. Doesn't mean that he's bad, though.
But do you think that he's getting paid based on what people thought he was going to be coming out of Clemson? Or has he just gotten paid because people are like, yeah, I still have full confidence. I've seen enough at the NFL level where he can be a $55 million a year quarterback.
Well, I think it's both, right? You don't necessarily pay somebody, and I think this is just good NFL philosophy. Yeah, you do pay somebody for what they've done, but you also you are paying an NFL quarterback. It's an investment in the future. You should be paying players based on what you think that they can do. You don't want it to be totally projection, right? But Daniel Jones, it's funny. We are going to be talking about Daniel Jones on this in a way. But Trevor Lawrence has shown you, again, maybe it's not the stats, maybe it's not even the advanced stuff, right? But I think if you just watch football and you watch the throws that he makes, and even last year, there was no quarterback in the NFL, and I don't even think it's close. No quarterback in the NFL that was impacted by drops more than last year. And not just drops on 1st and 10. We're dropping a 5-yard out route here to make it 2nd and 5 and to maybe just stay on schedule. We're talking beautiful balls and beautiful touchdowns that are dropped by Calvin Ridley, that are dropped by Christian Kirk. Beautiful balls thrown down the field. These are explosive plays, that throws that not a lot of NFL quarterbacks are making. And these guys were dropping them from last year. And Calvin Ridley was one of those guys that was dropping a lot of those footballs, Chris. So, I think Trevor Lawrence does deserve, and, even the Jaguars last year were in the middle of the season and we look at their record and how good it is, but we are saying to ourselves, well, this offense isn't great. And then he gets hurt in the beginning of December and then they don't win another game after that. But so while he's not perfect, at the same time, the criticism has been a little too harsh and unjustly harsh for Trevor Lawrence as of recent because he just got paid.
If you think that he's been criticized unfairly before this, wait till now, because there's a few things you have to go over. He is now a member of the over 50 million club, meaning that's what your AAV is going to be. He's one of 6 quarterbacks in it. The others are Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. So let's see here. Burrow got his team to a Super Bowl. Goff has gotten to a Super Bowl, not with his team, but he certainly did a lot to help Detroit get right on the precipice of it.
Even got close, yeah.
Lamar is a 2-time league MVP, and people will throw darts in his direction because he hasn't been able to get over the hump, but he is, I don't think any of us have any sort of issue with him earning more than $50 million per year.
And he carries that team.
Jalen Hurts got Philadelphia to the Super Bowl, and I mean, for goodness sakes, he would have been the Super Bowl MVP had we not seen another monstrous performance by Patrick Mahomes down the stretch.
Yep.
And Justin Herbert, I think people are paying him a bit for the future as well and expect him, now that he's got a real coach in there that isn't going to lose games in nutty ways, that we all feel like they could turn this around very quickly with him at the helm. So what do we have in Trevor Lawrence? I mean, can you put his name up there with those other 5 guys comfortably at this point?
I think you could put it up there, but realize that he's not past them.
He's not, and there are some deficiencies in his game. Last year, and I know it was the first year where he was really banged up in any sort of deal. Like, he missed a game. Like, there were times where, he was playing hurt, but that's this league. 21 touchdowns, 14 picks, 21 total turnovers. Only 2 quarterbacks had more. Sam Howell, who's now been jettisoned to a 2nd place, and Josh Allen, whom you are willing to live with it to the degree that he does so much for Buffalo, right? We can say that Josh Allen does way more for Buffalo than Trevor Lawrence has for Jacksonville. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. Last year, he was 21st in passer rating. I don't know if you're a big passer rating guy, but I'll throw it out there.
Yeah.
His EPA was down significantly from 2022 to 2023. I know you're big on that.
There you go. Yep.
His on-target percentage was down from 10th in the league to 40th of anybody who threw at least 100 passes last year. He was horrible on 3rd down. He had a league high 10 turnovers on third down. Those are the ones where you're extending drives or you're trying to make a huge play. He converted just 38% of his third downs. You know who else was ranked in that sort of area? 38%?
Not a good quarterback.
Desmond Ridder.
Yep.
Daniel Jones. Josh Dobbs. I don't know. I mean, is that where we want Trevor Lawrence to? Now, I get it. Maybe his team's not great. Maybe you don't love Doug Peterson, but his team didn't stink. And Doug Peterson's won a Super Bowl. I know he's not Andy Reid, but he's also not some total knucklehead, right?
Right.
Here's the thing. I have no problem with Jacksonville paying him at the end of the day. None. 0, 0, 0. But out of all the guys who have been paid, in my opinion, he needs to improve the most. He needs to improve the most.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do this, man. And I wanted to bring up the Trevor Lawrence versus Daniel Jones. I call it a nightmare comparison. And I'm a Giants fan. And I'm a Giants fan who, hey, you root for the guys in blue, blah, 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 blah. But have you seen this comparison and this graphic rolling around social media the last couple of days, Chris?
Yeah, I have.
Looking at Trevor Lawrence in his first 48 starts and Daniel Jones in his first 48 starts, where the yards are basically identical. Trevor Lawrence has the nod by like 300 yards. The yards per attempt are identical at 6.7. Trevor Lawrence has 66 total touchdowns, while Daniel Jones had 64, 35 interceptions for Lawrence versus 33 for Jones. You have 20 fumbles lost for Lawrence, 21 for Daniel Jones, and an 85.5 passer rating for Lawrence and an 85.4 passer rating for Daniel Jones. And I think both of them deserve the explanation for at least the first, not even, Jones deserves the explanation for Jason Garrett for 2 seasons, which was terrible. Mm-hmm. And then Trevor Lawrence deserves the explanation of whatever Urban Meyer was trying to accomplish for his first rookie season too. But for me, it comes down to just the way that they play quarterback, where you look at the throws that Trevor Lawrence can make and does make, the way that I understand Trevor Lawrence isn't great under pressure, but the way that they can avoid pressure, the way that they can throw on the run. Daniel Jones just doesn't do those things that Trevor Lawrence does, throwing with anticipation, anticipatory routes, anticipatory balls, not just throwing to the open receiver, but throwing to a receiver that can become open. These are the types of throws that you have to make in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence, while you need consistency, while you need better play, and while, Chris, you're absolutely right about talking about late downs and early downs and the turnovers, and then even I was going to start to bring in how they were better on early downs in 2022, 2023. They kind of took a step back. They were very average on early down. They were pretty solid on early downs, but they had no semblance of a running game. So I just think the Daniel Jones Trevor Lawrence comparison is so unfair, because you have to look at the way that they have played quarterback. And while Daniel, I don't understand how this is somehow painting Daniel Jones into a positive light when these numbers aren't even that good. But the way that they play quarterback is just entirely different.
There's no need to bring out those comparisons. Those are stupid.
Well, people have, and it's been frustrating as a football fan.
No, but it doesn't make any sense. And that just means you don't watch the games. There's not one.
Yeah.
If you take 1,000 football fans, are any of them taking Daniel Jones over Trevor Lawrence? That's not even a question. So we're not. No. To me, it's a silly thing. That's just social media fodder, just to get people's reaction and their blood boiling. And look at this. There really is not that much. No, watch the games. You should be able to tell.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna.
That's why I brought up the 5 people who are also in the neighborhood financially of Trevor Lawrence. Right. Like, where would you rank him right now out of the 6 guys that are earning at least $50 million per year on average? Burrow, once again, it's Burrow, Goff, Herbert, Lamar, and Hurts. Where is he?
I would put him ahead of Goff.
Okay.
Like, if you put him in the same system, right? Put him in the same system, everything's neutral. I would prefer Trevor Lawrence over Goff, but I would take the rest of the quarterbacks on my team over Trevor Lawrence. But that's not a huge ringing. It's not like an indictment on Trevor Lawrence, though. These are good quarterbacks.
I know, but now that you are earning big boy bucks and you're eating up that much of the pie, you have to play at an elite level.
Yeah.
You really do. Like you have to play at least now. It's not a 1-to-1 in my opinion. Like you don't have to play like a $55 million a year quarterback because what the hell is that? I don't know. But you have to play better than. I mean, if you're worse than like the 12th best quarterback in the league when you're making this sort of dough, you're killing your team.
Yeah,
I really think
no,
you
for
are.
sure. That offense at certain points last year was not good. Again, we were talking about how their record is good, but their defense was carrying them at certain points last year.
Not only that,
we were expecting Calvin Ridley to go in there and be the wide receiver number one alpha. I put in $5 to win $80 for Trevor Lawrence to win MVP last year. Those were the expectations, and he came nowhere near close. Nowhere near close. I have a path as to what I would like to see the Jaguars do to help Trevor Lawrence out. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, let's do it.
So Trevor Lawrence's average depth of target was almost a yard higher last year versus 2022. And I think that goes to a lot of the points about the turnovers. Hey, if you're living in third down, if you're living in third and long, you're going to try and be pushing the ball down the field, and Trevor Lawrence is going to run into a little bit more trouble. So that's number one. I would like to maybe see that average depth of target get a little bit more evened out. Also, 2022, you had a really good combo of Christian Kirk, and I believe it was Zay Jones who caught a lot of footballs. And I'm just going to make sure. Yes, it was Christian Kirk who caught 84 balls, Zay Jones who caught 82, and then Evan Ingram who caught 73 balls. And then you have Marvin Jones at 46, and then Travis Etienne at 35. So that's a nice little diversity in Doug Peterson's first year. That diversity really went down last year. We had Evan Ingram who caught 114, but a lot of those footballs were kind of fake catches there because you had Evan Ingram basically running the same route over and over again where he would shuffle out of his stance and he would basically just be the check down. If your first read isn't there, if your second read isn't there, then you go down to Evan Ingram. He's shuffling his feet kind of close to the line of scrimmage, near the line of scrimmage. We're going to dump it off to you, and you're going to get a couple yards there. Evan Ingram's average depth of target was really down last year. Calvin Ridley had 76 targets. Next player, Travis Etienne at 58, and Christian Kirk, who missed 6 games due to probably injury, 57, and then Zay Jones went down to 34. So I want to see a little bit more diversity. And now I feel like the Jaguars have that. Remember how Jordan Love, we were talking about this last week, how Jordan Love was saying how, it's kind of great that that an offense doesn't have a number one wide receiver, that we can spread the wealth evenly. Gabe Davis, who I think should be the offense's number 3 target. Brian Thomas, who you drafted in the first round, who I love the fit for this offense. And then Christian Kirk, who caught 80-some balls 2 years ago. And then plus you have Evan Ingram at tight end, who can be used as more than just this check down guy. He's a guy that can be used vertically down the seam too. This is the offense that I think kind of fits perfectly to what Jordan Love was saying, how you don't have this number one target. Brian Thomas can maybe emerge into that. I almost want to see Brian Thomas step into that Calvin Ridley role where he is targeted deep down the field. That's what Gabe Davis has done kind of throughout his career. And I think him being a number 3 versus a number 2 in that Buffalo offense is perfect. So I want to see more diversity and things get maybe a little bit easier on Trevor Lawrence this year, because if he's not going to be able to kind of like a Lamar Jackson just carries that offense, Josh Allen just carries that offense and you can live with the turnovers. If Trevor Lawrence can't be that, which is fine, then I think you can help him out, get back to what you were doing in 2022. You still have a good run game. You have a solid offensive line. Get back to what you were doing then, and I think that's my path to success for the Jaguars this year.
All right, there's another side of this, and that would be the next 2 quarterbacks that are up, right? Tua, who's now heading into his 5th year, and Dak Prescott, who is heading into his walk year. Do you think things get settled with one, both, or neither of their current teams this summer?
If there's one QB that I think is going to sign first, it should be Tua, and I would guess that it's going to get done. Right, I don't think the Dolphins should, especially looking at this QB market that's exploding and everybody's getting. Look at the Goff contract now. Lawrence is getting more. It's like if you want to talk about those quarterbacks in that echelon, Chris, where you're talking about what quarterbacks would you rather have, Tua's at the bottom of that for me.
Yeah,
right. But he is going to get a deal.
Here's the deal: if Tua had been a free agent this offseason, Who would have wanted him? Do you think?
What do you think Atlanta would have wanted him over Kirk?
I don't.
Okay.
Would
Who would have
Pittsburgh
wanted him?
would Pittsburgh have wanted him? Would Denver have wanted him? Would Minnesota have wanted him?
I could see Pittsburgh. I can eat Minnesota's interesting because again, you have a good offensive system, good offensive coach being like, I could take this quarterback, but then it takes a lot of money though. That's the thing.
Would New England have wanted him?
No, not with the draft capital that they had.
Would Washington have wanted him? Right?
I could have seen Pittsburgh pulling the trigger on it, and that would have been a horrible fit. Horrible. Because I think if you remove it, you saw it with. I don't think Brian Flores and the revolving door at offensive coordinator when Brian Flores was head coach wouldn't have been great for any quarterback. But I think if Tua leaves Mike McDaniel, it gets a lot worse. A lot worse.
Like, do you think that Kyle Shanahan would have wanted him?
No.
This is the thing with Tua. There's a lot more teams that would want nothing to do with him than would want him. Right. Isn't the whole point like how many teams of the guys we even just talked about? Oh my God, I can get my hands on Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson.
How many teams are talking about Dak Prescott right now saying the same thing?
I think Dak's a totally different guy.
Well, no, they would want to get their hands on.
Oh, yeah, yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that's why I do think that it gets done with Tua. I don't think he gets over $50 million average. I just don't. I don't because I don't think that there's the demand for him. Now, Dak, I think Dak sets the record next year. There's not going to be anything attached to him, right? So he's free to go wherever he wants.
Oh, Dak will set the record. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think that now it might end up being back in Dallas. What sort of what percentage do you give it that he stays in Dallas, even if he goes to free agency?
Oh, I'm 90%.
You think he's staying, huh?
Yeah, because I have been technically wrong and not presenting information correctly. I've been saying, the Cowboys would have to pay Dak Prescott $40 million to not be the quarterback next year. Mm-hmm. It's not just $40 million next year per se. I was listening to Adam Schefter. He's been early June, mid-June. He's been going on a little bit of a media tour. The Cowboys would have to spread out a dead cap hit of $95 million. I don't know how long they have to pay it or whatever, but they would have to pay Dak Prescott at some point, spread it out over X amount of years. And I think it does say on over the cap how long they would have to do that because those are all the void years. Void years 2025, 2026, 27, and then 2028. So they would have 4 years to spread out $95 million, which is an NFL record for dead money, by the way. NFL record. They are Jerry Jones. No matter how much he is pissed off at Dak Prescott, can't win in the playoffs, can't do this, can't do that. No matter how pissed off he is, Jerry Jones is not going to pay somebody $95 million to not be on their football team. He's not. I refuse to believe that.
Don't you remember a few weeks ago when Dak was talking about this stuff and he's like, I don't play football for money. Like,
well, you want to know what Dak Prescott, and this is what Schefter said. Does Dak Prescott not have the most leverage out of any player in the National Football League right now?
Anybody,
Yes.
because there's no tag availability here.
Can't trade him?
Nope.
And all the dead money. He is going to reset the market.
And there are teams that are going to want him.
Yes.
We can say whatever we want about mid to late January performances, and that is a huge part of his narrative. But he has been a very good regular season quarterback. He's been really good. He's never been it's weird because the guy finished runner-up in MVP, didn't he, last year? And you still don't think about him when you say, okay, name your top 5 quarterbacks. He doesn't.
Arguably should have won it even last year.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, he plays very well, and he does a lot of right things. And being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, as much great stuff as comes with it, it's not always easy. So he's learned how to handle all that. He's done a really good job with all of that. And so back to this. I
Well, what percentage do you put it at that he's back in Dallas?
I don't think 90 is it, but I would certainly lean. I would say probably 2/3, 67%. I definitely think that because of what you have said, and because Dallas doesn't change things as much as we think that Jerry Jones during his ownership. It's like, this isn't George Steinbrenner changing managers every 14 months. That's
Right.
not what he does. He might
Likes
be very
to seem that
hands-on.
way.
Yeah. No. We're all in. We re-signed our long snapper and brought in Kendricks. Like that was our all in. Everybody's expecting, oh my God, he's gonna go crazy.
Yeah, didn't address running back, didn't address receiver,
Right,
lost your left tackle.
so as much as I don't expect them to win it again this year. I'll play the odds on that one. Maybe they will, but I don't think they will. And so if that's the case, I don't expect them to try and get back into the quarterback market this year. I don't.
Right.
It'll be fascinating to see. What do you think the number is? He's going to get in the 60s per year, right?
Yeah, he's gonna reset it again.
So it's like another 4 years and 250.
Oh, he'll get 60. So whatever the total value may creep up to 300, depending on how long the deal is.
So maybe 5 for 300.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
All right, so let's move on to a guy who did get tagged. That would be
a lot of money.
Higgins. He signed his franchise tag, which means he's going to make 21.8 this year. Higgins is the only one of the 9 players who was tagged. I think there were 7 others that got franchise, and then you had, I think it was the transition tag for Kyle Duggar, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
The point is that all those other guys who were tagged did sign a long-term extension. So do you think that will happen with T. Higgins? Will he sign an extension by the July 15th deadline?
No, because I think it's all dependent on Jamar Chase, and I don't think that will happen yet. So I'm no, but you know what? Good for the Bengals, and even good on T. Higgins for kind of just standing firm. It's like, this is what we want to do. This is where we're at right now, and show up, man. Like we're in a window. We're in a window where we got you, T. Higgins. We're in a window where we got Jamar Chase. We got Joe Burrow. Like, it's go time. And if you wind up walking, then we'll reap the benefits, hopefully with the comp pick, because you're going to get a lot of money and then you're going to play a lot. And then if we don't spend a lot of money on our end because we got to be conservative with what we do, then we get a comp pick. And that's how teams like the Ravens, it's how teams do it, regurgitate, and we're going to draft well, right? But good on the Bengals for just standing firm. You're here. You're here. We want to win right now. And you're free to not show up. We would love for you to show up. And if you show up, odds are we're going to have a good shot at a Super Bowl. And if we win a Super Bowl, you're going to perform well. And then you're going to get paid a lot of money. Good on everybody.
I was a little surprised that he didn't get traded. There were 2 guys who were tagged and then traded, right? Brian Burns from Carolina to your Giants signed an extension. L'Jarius Sneed in Kansas City and then shipped to Tennessee and also got his extension. I thought that that's the way this was going to play out. It did not. The answer to this is this is it for him in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Higgins is the 5th player that the Bengals have franchise tagged since 2010. None of the previous 4 received an extension before the season.
Wow.
So this is it. AJ Green, he was tagged prior to the 2020 season, played on the tag and left via free agency in 2021. Now he was, a decade into his career. It's very different than T. Higgins, who is entering year number 4 of his career. He's coming off his most disappointing, most injury-plagued season.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good for him. But yeah, give it one more run. I actually did an interview with him on one of our social media channels through Twitter. I remember having him on as a guest during the Super Bowl. And I was asking him, have the Bengals made any ventures in your direction? He's like, no, I said, do you even know what you'll make next year if you get tagged? He's like, no. I said, do you want to know? He's like, okay. I said, 21.8 million because the numbers had just come out. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's pretty good. I was like, yeah, it's not bad. It's good for a year's work. You do that, and who knows what'll happen. He was very like tight-lipped about everything. Nobody likes to talk about their
Right.
money situation and their contract situation, and I get all that, but whatever. I mean, he'll do fine. He'll be one of these guys that signs a probably better than Christian Kirk deal. He got a lot of
Oh,
money.
100%. 100%. But I think we're in a day of age of, regardless of the sport, I mean, especially you see this a ton in basketball where just guys not happy with their situation. All right, snap your finger, trade me. Like, no, it's kind of shouldn't be how it works. Like, if you're signed to play for a team, regardless of whether it's 1 year, like if T. Higgins stays healthy, even if T. Higgins has another bit of a season where he's a little bit injured, a little bit hurt, I'm not talking about missing like half a season. T. Higgins is going to get paid.
Totally.
So while you're in this window with the Bengals and while you are signed to the Cincinnati Bengals, meanwhile you may not be happy with your full situation, show up to play. So I love it.
The only thing that could get in the way here is if he is a little dinged up this year, and everybody gets dinged, right? And there's a month to go, and the Bengals are in the playoff hunt.
Right. What's he going to do? Yeah.
And that's the danger of not extending a guy and not getting. And by the way, I know this sounds ridiculous for people. I get it.
Yeah.
He's got to protect himself. You know, everybody wants you to, well, you got to play 100% for your team and all this. Listen, his job is to get that second contract. That's what he is. He might be wearing Bengals colors and represent them. He's Team T. Higgins, and he should be.
Yeah.
This isn't ping pong he's playing. This is tackle football.
Mm-hmm.
So as much like people say, all right, well, Rose, what if it was Amari Cooper? I'd be like, yeah, but I understand it. Even though Amari Cooper has now gotten onto a second contract. Let's say somebody else, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. You want to look at it that way.
Love him.
Yeah, I do too. But similar sort of situations, right? Last year of rookie deal, has a chance to make a ton of money. If the team doesn't, and if he's dinged up, like I get it. I understand the player's plight here. You would like to believe that everybody says, all right, well, screw it. I'll worry about myself when it's the offseason. But man, I don't know. So Brandon Ayuk is a guy that we thought he was getting traded, and then the Niners said there's no way in hell we're trading him and all this. And then there's this social media clip that's been floating around. If you've forgotten, you know, he was at Arizona State, and Jaden Daniels, before he was at LSU, was his quarterback at Arizona State. There was actually a very funny clip during the draft process. Here's Jaden Daniels throwing a touchdown to Brandon Ayuk. You're like,
he's old.
Jeez, man, Jaden Daniels has been playing college football since the 70s. So, you know, we've kind of wondered, where does Ayuk sit with the San Francisco 49ers? And in the social media clip, he and Daniels are FaceTiming, and he tells the Washington rookie quarterback, yeah, the Niners said they don't want me. Now, we haven't heard that from San Francisco. They're, you know, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have not come out and said that's totally ridiculous, because we're kind of in a dead period for football right now. Mm-hmm. Did that do anything for you, that clip?
No. But I'm saying that if you're, you know, for you audio people, I'm smiling while saying that. I think Brandon Ayuk is too important to what the San Francisco 49ers identity has not turned into, but what it's evolved into. Where Ayuk now is way less expendable than Deebo Samuel. You know, Ayuk has more catches the last 2 years than Deebo Samuel. Ayuk has been more healthy than Deebo Samuel over the last couple years, 2 years. And Ayuk, like if you look at yards per route run, which that's a nice little efficiency stat that I like to look at, Ayuk's sitting there, I think, like the top 6. So not only we're just talking about Brandon Ayuk, really underrated for the San Francisco 49ers offense, yada, yada, yada. He's one of the best in the NFL. And this is something I couldn't believe, where success percentage on Pro Football Reference, a successful reception gains at least 40% of the yards required on first down, 60% of the yards required on second down, 100% required on third or fourth down. 70.5% success rate for Brandon Ayuk last year on his catches. 70% either resulted in something that was really positive for the San Francisco 49ers, and this is on 105 targets, 75 receptions, and 7 touchdowns. 61 of his 75 catches went for first downs. Chris, that's really good, man. And I could understand how the Bengals look at somebody like T. Higgins and say, you know what? Your 80 catches that you get as a wide receiver 2, we think that maybe we can replace and we can get by with Jamar Chase as the number 1. A declining Deebo Samuel, a declining Trent Williams. Well, they're still really good, but they're older, right? And even Deebo Samuel, who's, I feel bad saying declining Deebo Samuel, but kind of, right? A kind of declining-ish Deebo Samuel. I don't understand how you can look at Brandon Ayuk and be like, yeah, that's a guy that's expendable.
Yeah, so Deebo's interesting. You can't talk about Ayuk without talking about Deebo.
Right.
And actually, as I bring up his numbers, it's a little more surprising, to be honest with you, because he actually did have a solid statistical year. Okay, he only averaged 4 catches per game. He played in 15 games. He had 60 catches. But his yards per reception, the second highest of his career. Now, in 2021, he had 18 yards per catch, which was utterly insane. He had more than 1,400 receiving yards that year.
And he was like a running back that year, too. So.
Yeah. But he averaged almost 15 yards per catch. He had more rushing touchdowns last year than he did the year before. But in the area where you can't pay everybody, I would rather pay Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
I know that it's fun to line up Deebo in the backfield and motion him back there, and hopefully you have an advantage somewhere, but we're talking about the Niners. Niners have got to win one of these things.
Yeah.
They've got to win one. Like, if they trade Brandon Ayuk for a pick, that's not going to help them in 2024.
They would get a first-round pick for him.
Okay, but that's not going to help them this year.
No.
Do they have a chance of winning the Super Bowl without Brandon Ayuk?
No.
Do they have a chance of winning the Super Bowl without Deebo Samuel and getting nothing to replace him this year?
Yes, but Deebo is also extremely important to the team.
Yes, he is. But is he? That's the right. Like, we don't know Trent Williams. Like, this could be it for him. This could be his last year. And it's also probably the last year where you're going to deal with a rookie on with a quarterback on a rookie deal.
Right.
So for this year and moving forward, I think both answers are the Niners have a better chance with Brandon Ayuk than they do with Deebo Samuel.
Yeah. Even though I think the splits, we don't really get a chance to see the 49ers without Ayuk because he's there, because he's on the field. But the splits without Deebo are also alarming. Even though I put more of an emphasis on Trent Williams. Well, because sometimes they're out at the same time, and it gets sometimes they're out at the same time, so you don't really get a good indication. So I put a little bit more into like heavy emphasis on Trent Williams' impact on the offense than Deebo, but still, Deebo's still I think he's the best yak guy in the NFL. Still,
I think the mistake the Niners made was not doing something before the Justin Jefferson deal, because now Ayuk sees that 4 for 140 and is like, yeah, I can play too. Right? And
I do buy that they tried to trade him. I buy that.
That they were shopping him. Ayuk?
Yeah, I buy it.
I think that remember that narrative switched kind of right around the draft that no, they're not trying to trade Ayuk. They're trying to trade Deebo.
Did that come out after the draft or during or before?
I thought it was before the draft.
Okay.
That's if I remember correctly.
Because if it comes out, my lights went out. Because if it comes out after the draft, then it's one of those things of like, really?
You want to go turn on your lights?
Nice. Yeah, I just gotta wave my arms around.
Okay,
good.
I
just gotta wave my arms around a little bit.
Nice.
The podcasting studio has a motion censored lights that goes out after 45 minutes.
Um, so one of the teams that somebody was rumored to be traded to was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And TJ Watt just did an interview with The Athletic talking about his playing future. He's turning 30 years old, says he doesn't want to play real long. He's talked to his older brother, JJ, who said he didn't want to play real long and then ended up getting a couple more years in. And before you know it, he's in there well over a decade. So as for TJ Watt, he is a free agent after 2025. He's eligible for an extension after this season. Still looking for that initial playoff win, and he said that's what it's all about. It's all about wins and losses. But just in terms of the fun discussion world that we live in, how close is TJ to being in the discussion of best Watt in NFL history?
Well, Chris, with our friends over at Stathead Football and Pro Football Reference, we have the ability to compare players side by side. And you even have the fun ability to select certain years and spans of years as well. So here's what I did. J.J. Watt ages 23 to 29 season. That's 2012 to 2018. And I did T.J. Watt's age 24 season to 29 season, 2018 to 2023. I included an extra year of J.J. Watt because there were 2 years in there where he was hurt, and there was only 1 year of there where TJ Watt was hurt, where TJ Watt, 2022, he didn't have such a great year because he was hurt for the majority of the year. Still played like 10 games, though. 12 games, got like 5.5 sacks, something like that. So it boils down to JJ Watt, 88 games, and TJ Watt, 89 games, even though there's an additional year in there. So this is perfect. So AV for approximate value during that span. JJ Watt has a whopping 101 AV, and AV is kind of like WAR. If you like baseball, wins above replacement, kind of just measures your value. JJ Watt, a whopping 101 to TJ Watt's 84. JJ Watt, 1 interception to TJ Watt's 6 interceptions. Chris, did you know that TJ Watt has 7 interceptions?
I did.
It's crazy. He picked off Matt Stafford this past year as like covering a slot wide receiver. TJ Watt like disguised his coverage, read Matt Stafford's eyes, and baited him, and had like a nice little return as well. I couldn't believe it. I did a whole short on it because I was like, this is a edge rusher who's doing this right now. And he has 7 of these in his career. JJ Watt, 86.5 sacks. TJ Watt, 89.5 sacks. So TJ Watt gets the edge in sacks.
See what you did.
Solo tackles, 309 for JJ, 251 for TJ. Forced fumbles, TJ has 4 more, 26 to 22. And then fumble recoveries, 11 to 10 for JJ over TJ. Championships, 0. Pro Bowls, TJ has 6. JJ has 5. 6 All-Pros for JJ. 5 All-Pros for TJ. And 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards for JJ versus TJ Watt only has 1. We'll even do QB hits too. JJ Watt, 225. TJ Watt, 185. And then even JJ has like 44 more tackles for loss over that span. This is not a knock on TJ Watt. I think TJ Watt's career numbers are going to be much better than JJ Watt's. They kind of already are, at least sack wise. But I think the peak of JJ Watt's career, I don't know if we're ever going to see a defensive player that's going to give us that span of like 4 years where he's getting double-digit sacks, almost 20 sacks, 40, 50 QB hits, while also nearing or getting 20 tackles for loss. A peak of those 4 or 5-ish years, I don't know if we're ever going to get that from a defensive player ever again. And JJ played the interior. Wasn't even like an edge rusher.
Well, that's the thing, is that the ability to move him around is what kind of separates him from his brother, I think.
Yes.
TJ could pass him this year. He's 18 sacks shy of his older brother. So that part could happen. There are some people who said TJ Watt got ripped off from a Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. He finished runner-up to Myles Garrett. So he has won Defensive Player of the Year. He has twice been a runner-up and third another time.
Right.
JJ, as you mentioned, there's only two other guys that have won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. You know who they are?
Guessing one is LT.
That's correct.
And then the other one, would it be Reggie White?
That's a great guess. It's not accurate. It would be the recently retired Aaron Donald.
Ah,
So Donald, like J.J. Watt, you could move him wherever you wanted to. If you had to push him a little bit outside, you could, but he's so good in that interior and would just kill guys. The thing I totally forgot is that J.J. finished runner-up to Aaron Rodgers in the 2014 MVP voting. You know, we've only had
yes.
2 defensive players ever win MVP. It was Alan Page of the Vikings, I believe, in 1971, and then Lawrence Taylor in 86. So that just doesn't happen. And the fact that he was actually, you know, in the voting tells you how special he was. And he
Yep.
was great. You could just move him all over. And I think it's that versatility that will separate them. We're going to see both of them in Canton, which I think
Yep.
is really cool. I wish that would happen for the Matthews brother. Bruce is already there. Clay, I think, should be there. But I think it's really neat. And the fact that we can even have this discussion, you know, some people would take the discussion and be like, no, it's not even close. It is close.
It is.
TJ Watt is a phenomenal football player. He drives me nuts. Like, as a Browns fan, he got 2 sacks or 2 interceptions, I think, the first game in his career against the Browns. He's a damn good football player.
Yeah, I actually think 2023 was the most complete year that he had. I know there was a 22 and a half sack year, 21 tackle for loss year, and there were some other years where he had some more QB hits in there too. But I think this year was I think it was his best year.
Yeah,
from a football playing standpoint.
Really good. All right, before we get out of here, the teams have pretty much broken. The mandatory mini camps have pretty much wrapped up, and next time we'll see is when it all really starts for training camp. So what is the biggest storyline as we kind of head into this break in June? Although we're not going anywhere, but what do you think
No.
the NFL one is?
Well, I mean, as a fan, I always hope that nobody gets arrested during these 6 weeks.
Okay.
Let's not have to come on here and talk about.
What about give me a headline that we could sink our teeth into?
No, but really, Chris, it really is the whole Dak Prescott to these next quarterbacks that are going to get. I tried to think of another one, but news wise that could come up these next 6 weeks. I thought of even some camp battles and but I'm like, everything is predicated on what's going to be happening in training camp and preseason and things like that. Really, through these next 6 weeks, is anybody going to blink? And then this even includes the wide receivers as well. Are we going to take these 6 weeks and are we going to chill? Are we going to relax? Or is somebody going to blink? Are they going to want their guaranteed money? Or are they going to want their contract done before the season starts? And then that may cause other dominoes to fall here as well, because I think Ayuk and maybe even Higgins, even though I don't think so much Higgins because I don't think the Bengals are really interested, but Ayuk maybe is waiting on Jamar Chase, and maybe Chase is waiting on Ayuk, and maybe Tua is waiting on Dak. Dak doesn't have to do anything. So that's what I think the through these 6 weeks, if there's any other movement contract wise, that's what it is for me.
For me, is anybody going to really find out where Aaron Rodgers was during the mandatory minicamp?
Right.
Somebody might do some digging and find it out. There were some rumors over the weekend. I don't even want to talk about them because until they're substantial, I do think that the Aaron Rodgers introductory training camp press conference will be fascinating. I think it'll be really interesting.
The biggest storyline and headline for the New York Jets over these next 6 weeks is to not have a storyline or a headline.
Yeah.
That's what I would like from the Jets. For silence.
I think it's and by the way, there was we just found this out before we hopped on to record, is that the in-season Hard Knocks will not be a team, but rather an entire division.
I love
the
it.
AFC North, and that'll start in early December. So you're going to get a taste of all 4 teams, and it was the best division in football last year.
It is this year.
You would expect it to be with, as long as health doesn't affect it too significantly.
The NFL just doesn't miss, man. Did you even see the trailer for the receiver show that's going to be debuting? We'll have that to talk about in July.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Even that, I mean, the quarterback is going to get more views, but even that's like awesome. Like, let's just get. I think it's Debo, Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
Did they get Jamar? Or they got the top receivers in the league, and they made a Netflix show on them. Like, okay, awesome. NFL just doesn't miss.
Nope. More good content. All right, we are back at it again later in the week. We're going to come out with some sort of fun list. We're kicking around a few ideas. Bobby Skinner will be at the top of that list because he'll be back. How tan is he going to be?
Probably not much more tan because he just lives in Florida year round, and he's tan all year round anyway.
Yeah, but this is a vacation. You're on it with your girl.
Yeah,
more time to just kind of chill. You don't have to worry about doing clips for Talking Giants or Football Today or anything. We're
gonna see him refreshed.
Okay, I like that. I like a refreshed Bobby. So make sure you tune in later this week for that. Producer Mikey, shout out. Thanks for always putting the show together. We appreciate it. Justin Penik, great. Where you leaving already? Penik is, I don't know where he's going.
No, I'm producing the show, so I have to end it.
Oh, you have to end it. Okay, great job. Good job there, Penik. I am Chris Rose. We will see you later this week on Football Today.